Hello and welcome to another episode of Ricos' Rants. I'm your host, Rico DiGiorgio. So, yeah, this happened. Ended up shaving my head last night. Kind of wanted to go back. I was looking in the reflection and videos, and I was like, oh my fuck, my hair is just thinning out. Now you can never tell. I think I look pretty good. Anyways, today, like if you saw my previous video, a little quick Happy Batman Day video. I talked about how I'm going to be doing some upcoming horror films. Before I do all that, I have other movies I have to talk about first. Some of them I have to catch up on, and some of them are classics. So eventually, starting from then on, I've got some horror films lined up. I'm going to do some horror films from the majority of October. I may throw another one in. I do have some requests from other people that are not horror films, so I will do an occasional non-horror film. But the majority of these, if you're a horror fan, you'll be seeing Child's Play, you'll be seeing Cabin in the Woods, and then I've got one of my favorites specifically for Halloween night. I don't know if I'll dress up. I may. Who knows? Maybe that'll be a recurring thing. Every Halloween I'll dress up for a Rico's Rant. If I'm even going to be... I'm pretty sure I'm working that night, but who cares? Whatever. So without further ado, this video is going to be Forrest Gump. I know, right? What the fuck? The reason why is because Forrest Gump is a classic film. It is one of the perfect examples of a modern day classic. It's not a blockbuster. It's not a dramedy. It's sort of everything. It's a biopic about no one in particular, and it is a fantastic film. But it does have some faults, like every other film. And I remember, for those again who haven't seen any of the videos that I do, spoilers. So just bear that in mind. I remember first seeing Forrest Gump starring the amazing Tom Hanks back when I was probably 6 or 7 years old, and it had come out in '94. So, quick rundown of the cast. Tom Hanks plays the title character, Forrest Gump. Sally Field plays Mama, his mama. Gary Sinise plays Lieutenant Dan, who, honestly, Tom Hanks is great in this. Sally Field's great in this. Robin Wright, or Robin Wright Penn, depending on how you look at it. In this time of her career, she was Robin Wright. Are all great. But for me, the unspoken talent in this, and I mean, it is spoken. He was very critically acclaimed for this role. But Gary Sinise as Lieutenant Dan is probably my favorite in this, and probably my favorite performance of Gary Sinise. To be fair, he's always that underrated actor. He's sort of the glue of films. Where he's like, oh, it's Lieutenant Dan, that motherfucker. So I enjoyed watching Forrest Gump when I was a kid, but it's kind of it's definitely not a kid's movie. Like, I got away with it because it's very heartwarming and uplifting, but it also deals with a lot of very adult themes. And just a reminder, spoilers. It starts out in rural Alabama. And basically, Forrest Gump it's not explicitly stated whether he's just a low IQ idiot or a slow person, or if he's an autistic person. He's just a little slow and doesn't. He's sort of in his own way a man-child. He's not an autistic savant in the same sense of Rain Man, but he's definitely got some talents. I mean, he has sort of autistic things where, like, I read that people with autism, there's a specific term for it, I'm blanking on what it's called, where they will just start running. Like, they'll just run for no particular reason. And at one point in the film, in a big part of the film, Forrest runs for 3 years for no particular reason. Like, it's just really So there's little tiny things, and he's proficient at hand-eye coordination and playing ping pong and loading up a rifle really quickly. Um, you see this guy receive no training usually for certain things, and he just picks it up. He has that sort of savant um, mindset in a weird way, although he's very simple and very warm. I mean, he's just an innocent. So he is a simpleton in his own way, and he is very much a mama's boy, and he speaks in a very hard Southern dialect. I mean, that, for those who don't know, the first 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 20 minutes of the film when he's young is played by a young actor who had a very strong Southern accent. And you do a hard G like, my name's Forrest Gump. And he would never soften it. So, he just naturally spoke that way. So Hanks observed this and just said, well, I'm going to do a grown-up version of what he sounds like. So he just imitated the kid. And it gave one of the perfect random accents ever. I'm pretty positive that no one in Alabama really sounds like Forrest Gump, but it made a very unique voice. And it's kind of fun to imitate. My name's Forrest Gump. Like, it's just perfect. Starts off with Forrest when he's an adult, played by Tom Hanks, sitting at a bench in, what state it was? It was Arkansas or something. It was another southern state, and Georgia. It was in Georgia, and he's on his way to seeing his old friend, his childhood friend, and really the only love of his life, Jenny, played by Robin Wright. And he's sitting there, and there's a woman sitting next to him, and he, just very politely, like, my name's Forrest Gump, and he has a chocolate bar. He's like, would you like a chocolate? And she just kind of keeping to herself and reading, and he's like, I could eat about 1.5 million of these. My mom always said life was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Which is bullshit, because all you have to do is flip the fucking thing over and it says what chocolates you're going to eat. Well, sometimes mama was wrong. Anyways, he starts telling his life story to this one woman, and then gradually it's other people that kind of fill in the spot. And he's just oblivious to them, really, until, they speak to him. He's just going on this whole long tale of him growing up and slowly interacting with the most famous fucking people of pop culture. As well as political, and as well as religious, and it's crazy how he is the most basic man, living the most extraordinary life ever. Bearing from the very beginning, when he's a little kid, he's got braces on his legs because his back is all crooked. And so at one point, he and his mother, in order to make money, they have this giant house where in order to make money, they get tenants to come in and stay, and it's a lot of traveling salesmen and blah blah blah. And at one point, a very young Elvis Presley, who you don't see his face completely, it's always out of focus in the background, is playing guitar, and he's doing Hound Dog or whatever the fuck. I'm not really an Elvis fan, but and he, because he's got the rickety legs and the braces, he's doing the hip movements that Elvis later adopts. So he inspired Elvis's pelvis dance move, and you see it later when he and his mom are walking, and they pass by a TV store with TVs playing. It shows Elvis on Ed Sullivan, stuff like that. That's just a very basic little fun fact for those who didn't know. The man who supplied the voice, not the physical performance of Elvis Presley, is Kurt Russell. And if you rewatch it, and if you know what Kurt Russell sounds like, it's perfect. Sounds like Elvis, but it sounds like Kurt Russell. I saw Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 recently. It's his voice. Perfect impression. And again, I'm not even an Elvis fan. I mean, for those who like him, fine. C'est la vie. I'm a Sinatra fan. There's Elvis and Sinatra fans, in my opinion. Anyways, moving on. he meets his best friend Jenny on his first bus trip to school, and she's sort of, nice to him and treats him with respect, but very bluntly says, "Are you stupid or something?" Not calling him stupid, just very much a question, like, "Are you stupid?" And he just sort of, "Mama said stupid is as stupid does," and just sort of, they become very close friends, or as he puts it, "We was like peas and carrots." I apologize if you don't like the Forrest Gump impression. I'm going to keep doing it. I don't give a fuck. It's funny. Anyways, the friendship grows between the two of them. So much so that you begin to realize that she has a hard life. And the movie is really about these two people going off in very different directions. It doesn't say it explicitly, but it very much hints and shows that she comes from a broken family where her father is abusive drunk as well as sexually abusive. Forrest, who is the narrator and is our point of view, basically, but also has a very childlike, innocent mind, said, her father loved her. He's always kissing her and touching her and her sisters, which, in this context sounds like a beautiful thing. And then you realize the deeper, unsettling meaning of that. And he goes to see her at home because she wasn't at school that day. And they both run away from the father, who comes out carrying a bottle of whiskey, and they're hiding in the cornfield or whatever. And she says, "Pray with me," and they both start praying, and she starts repeating in almost a terrified chant, like, "Please God, make me a bird so I can fly far, far, far away." And that's important to acknowledge, because I'll get to that later. And again, spoilers. So then they move on. They go on to different things. They go to college, and he gets a college scholarship because he's really fast, and he can play football. So he gets a college scholarship, and she is in her own college, and she's getting slowly more promiscuous and experimenting with drugs and alcohol, and that's a recurring thing that comes throughout the whole film. You never see him once drink anything apart from like Dr. Pepper, and that's very I don't know if it's like, I didn't choose to drink alcohol because of my brain. It's very much he just never really grew up. He never had interest. He was very much in his own world, and it's probably something Mama told him. So he eventually joins the army, and then goes off to training under hi Dino, under training to Lieutenant Dan Taylor, played by Gary Sinise. Gary Sinise is say hi to Dino, everyone. Gary Sinise, like I said earlier, is fantastically cast in this role. Very gruff, very, sit down, shut up. And the first thing he says is, he's like, "You must be my FNGs," which stands for fucking new guys. So just that alone is just like, this guy is funny. This guy is raspy and charming, and this guy is gonna fucking, as he's talking to Forrest and Forrest's new friend, Bubba, he goes off to take a shit. And he's giving them like a pep talk on what to do and to, how to survive Vietnam. And it goes on to show the horrors of Vietnam. Like I said, this can be a very lighthearted film, but it's got a very dark, seedy, depressing undertone. Just starting with the fact that Jenny's being molested. It doesn't explicitly say that, but it's there. And if you're like me, you're a kid when when you saw this. Like, I was 6 or 7. A lot of this shit went over my head. In particular, there's a scene early in the film where, there's actually 2 scenes that just went over my head. One, when he's a boy and he's trying to get into school, the principal is basically telling his mama that he is too stupid. His IQ is 75, and it's too low to admit him to school. And she kind of flirts with him, and he flirts right back, meaning the principal. And he blatantly says, "Is there a Mr. Gump, Mrs. Gump?" And she just kind of realizes what that means and just says, "He's on vacation." And the next scene, immediately, it shows Forrest on a swing set outside at night, and you hear Mama's high-pitched screeching. And I'm the type of guy who watches movies in subtitles. I never want to miss anything. I have a hard time hearing mumblers, despite the fact that I am a mumbler. I don't want to miss anything. So it was really funny to see, he. It was just like, so that went over my fucking head. And I kind of knew what it was when I was 6 or 7. But I also, at the same time, I didn't make the connection. I'm like, what is that? What, is she having sex? This is the sex I've been hearing about? But why? He just wants to go to school. It didn't make sense to me. Now it makes perfect sense, and now I was like, holy shit, I was just too young for this movie. Despite the fact I was seeing hard R movies with my brothers when I was very young, this one for some reason just went over my head. Because it has the very thinly veiled that this is a family film in its own way. You know, in the same sense of like Who Framed Roger Rabbit is in its own way a family film, but it deals with sex, deceit, murder, and corruption. Like, that's perfect to talk about, because this is also directed by Robert Zemeckis, who directed and he wrote, I think, Forrest Gump. I'm blanking on that, but I think it's a a Robert Zemeckis thing, which is he will release films that are very family, but also a lot of adult undertones. Not to mention Back to the Future, which, yes, at some point I will do a Back to the Future trilogy. So another scene that is really just went over my fucking head. Forrest visits Jenny at college, and it's pouring rain, and he's waiting outside just to be a perfect gentleman, and she comes home with a date. She doesn't know he's waiting for her, and as she and her date are gonna like position themselves to make out and have sex in the front seat of his car, she accidentally bumps her head against the window and says, "Ow!" And Forrest, who's very protective of her, thinks that he's getting hurt, thinks that he's hurting her, runs in, beats the shit out of her boyfriend, who fucking yells at her and drives off, ruining her night. She says, "You know, what's wrong with you?" And he's like, "He's hurting you," and all that shit. She takes him inside to her dorm room, sneaks him in, really, and she starts undressing him in front of him, and he's sort of laying on the couch or on the bed, and he's, "Stop it, Dino," and he's got a blanket or it's a bathrobe over his lap, and she kind of just realizes, she's like, "Have you ever kissed a girl? Have you ever?" And he's like, "You know, she's like, "Have you ever been with a girl, Forrest?" He's like, "I sit with them in my home economics class all the time." She takes off her bra, and he's immediately like, "No," and she just kind of takes his hand, puts it on her tit, and he immediately goes, sorry, I'm sorry." She's like, "It's okay, it's okay." And he's like, "Oh, I'm dizzy." Didn't make sense to me when I was 7. Makes sense now. He fucking premature ejaculated on her roommate's fucking robes. And even then, I'm so glad I had the subtitles on, because I didn't catch this until last night. He said, "I think I ruined your roommate's robe." And then she says, "That's okay, I don't really like her." And then that pans to the roommate, and the roommate's like staring, like eavesdropping, like, what the fuck just happened? What the fuck just happened is right. This is a fucking weird movie. But okay. So then moving on, Vietnam and all that shit in Vietnam, and he becomes a decorated war hero. And then he moves on and does other things. He meets multiple presidents. He meets JFK, Johnson, and Nixon. And each time he meets a president, it's a memorable time. Very significant. Like when he meets Kennedy, he got a lot of free food, but he wasn't hungry, he was just thirsty, so he just drank almost had about me 15 Dr. Peppers. So it just shows him like putting down like 15 bottles right in front of him. And then he's all the college football players are meeting Kennedy because he was voted All American, and he is just like gotta like he's really gotta pee, and then like Kennedy's just like, how's it feel to be an All American? And he's like, very good, sir. And then he goes to Forrest, congratulations. How do you feel? I gotta pay. I believe he said he had to go pay. Like, what the fuck? It's really a funny film, and then it gets dark. And I won't ruin every scene. I won't ruin everything. But I do have to talk about the ending. The ending is very significant because I was talking about something earlier. And again, spoilers. Spoil the fuck out of it. Due to Jenny's past, doing drugs and alcohol and going through the 60s and the 70s, she develops, though it's not explicitly stated, develops hepatitis. Whatever. She got hepatitis. Thank you. I don't know where the fuck my brain. Hepatitis C. Wow, that was a fucking blonde moment. Jesus Christ. That was for you, Steph. Hepatitis C. They don't explicitly say that. I had to look that up and be like, what the fuck virus did she get? Because my first initial thought was she had AIDS, where I was like, that's going to be a problem for later. But she had hepatitis, and she says, I have some sort of virus. Oh shit, there was a spider on me. Anyways, that freaked the fuck out of me. Dino, you're useless. Sorry, I'm really afraid of spiders, so that just scared the shit out of me. Ugh. That was for you too, Stephanie. Fuck. Holy shit. Anyways, where was I? Apart from shitting my pants with a spider crawling on my arm, holy shit. Okay, let's try and regroup here. It's now we're towards the end of the film, and we realize this whole journey is leading up to this moment. And he visits Jenny, who has sort of got her shit together, but now has a virus, hepatitis C, double checking, and not only that, has a little boy. And there's a beautiful moment, and played by young Haley Joel Osment, his first role, I believe. Wonderful scene where he's with Jenny in her apartment, and then the nanny drops off her son, who's about 5 years old. I'm actually going to start crying. It's really sad. And he goes off to watch TV, and he said, "You're a mama, Jenny." And she's like, "I'm a mama." It's like, his name is Forrest. He's like, "Like me." And he just has this note, does not make any connection. And she's like, "I named him after his daddy." And even then, he's like, "He got a daddy named Forrest, too?" "You're his daddy, Forrest." And you see this look of, like he doesn't know if he did something wrong. He's very much looking like a little boy who doesn't understand what the issue is. And he's very much like, am I in trouble? And he kind of moves away from the kid and from her. And she's like, "Forrest, you did nothing wrong. He's your son, but it's okay. Like, you did nothing wrong." And then you see him go and start crying. And he says, is he smart? And I'm going to drop the accent because I can't do the accent with this scene. He's like, is he smart, or is he like... And you realize that moment, he always knew how unintelligent he was. That he was afraid that he had passed on his mental retardation, his autism, his just low IQ onto his son. Like, he didn't... It's heartbreaking. And then she says he's very smart, he's the smartest in his class, and he starts crying. And you're just, oh my God, you want to feel for this guy. You feel for the fact that he, this whole time, was aware of how stupid he was. Lived an incredible life, but he always knew that he was not normal. And then she reveals about the fucking hepatitis. And he says, you and Forrest can come stay home with me and I'll take care of you. They get married. And then she dies. And you don't know that until at one point he narrates again. He says, you died on a Sunday morning. And he's looking at her grave and he's like, I buried you under our favorite tree. And then I tore down the house that your daddy built. And then he starts talking about how little Forrest is doing great and how they're fishing together and how he's going to take him to school soon. And he says, he's so smart, Jenny. You'd be so proud of him. I am. And he's just sobbing uncontrollably. And I'm not going to lie. I cried my eyes out. Dino, stop it. My dad is a total softie. I mean, I've done impressions of him, and I give off the impression he's a very gruff, what are you talking about, kind of person, and he is that. But my dad's a total softie when it comes to movies. Like, the first time I ever saw my father cry, apart from a funeral, when my uncle died, my father's brother, I was in a position inside the building where I couldn't see my father, but I could hear him. He was giving a speech about a story about his brother. Very funny story. At some point, I may even throw it in one of these videos at some point. But I didn't see my father. I found out later that my father was sobbing through the whole story. So I never saw my father cry until I saw Forrest Gump with him when I was very young. And my dad is not very good at hearing. I guess it's genetic. And my dad turned to me during a really upsetting scene in Forrest Gump, and he turns to me and he's like, what did he say? And he said, I'll miss you, Jenny. I mean, it was sort of surreal that my dad was sobbing over this movie, and then now, years later, I totally understand it. The reason why I'm talking about Jenny's death is because as Forrest walks away, he's like, if you need anything, I won't be far away, and he walks away. And then you see a bunch of birds leave the tree and fly off. And it stops Forrest. He turns and looks at it. The whole, please make me a bird so I could fly far, far away. Very touching. Very beautiful way that Zemeckis did it. I mean, honestly, the whole cast is fantastic. The music is very good, but the directing is very good. Now, I said it's got some flaws, meaning, while it is a perfect film in its own way, historically, it's not that accurate. I saw this great video on Cracked where it basically did a whole timeline of Forrest's 3-year run and how they sort of try to label it and time it during events that happened during his run. And the timeline doesn't match up. So, historically accurate in many ways, but also very historically inaccurate in a lot of other ways. Very much so, they're just like, well, fuck it, no one's paying attention. Until this one guy was like, I'm going to pay attention, year by year to make sure that this was as accurate as possible. Little side note, this is based on a book by Winston Groom. Now, I read the book. The book is way more fucked up. They very blatantly have Forrest refer to himself as a retard, but in this one he's more of a racist hick, and at one point he's known to be more aggressive and punch people out. Like when he goes to the army, he gets his full physical, and a doctor sticks a finger up his ass to do the prostate exam, and as Forrest is narrating, he's like, he stuck his finger up my ass, so I just turned around and clocked him in the face. Not so much you ever see that. You only see him being aggressive when he's defending Jenny. He's never being punching people out for no reason. So there's a lot of changes, and apparently Winston Groom was not happy with the adaptation, because he later wrote a sequel, and the first thing he said is, don't ever let anyone make a story about your life. And in the story, he talks about how like the film, like Forrest Gump, the movie, is in the world of this character's book. Um, and how even the character, I haven't read Gump and Co. is what it's called, but it's at one point Forrest Gump apparently meets Tom Hanks. I don't know if he punches him out, but I'm curious. There's been long rumors about a Gump and Co. movie, so a sequel. You know what? They shouldn't. Am I curious? But yeah, but at the same time, I don't necessarily need to see Gump meeting Obama or Gump meeting Tom Hanks and punching him out, because why would that work? And no, leave it the fuck alone. You know, having Tom Hanks play himself and Forrest Gump in a movie and being like, yeah, I didn't like how you played me is really just confusing and disregarding the fact that Tom Hanks did do an amazing job for a character no one had any fucking clue about. You know, and plus he won his Oscar. He won his second Oscar in a row. First for Philadelphia, then for this. 93 and then 94. I mean, that doesn't happen that often. I think he's like number 3 in the history, or number 2. I think it might have been Jimmy Stewart. Overall, excellent film. And I have and can rewatch it again and again and again and be satisfied and be happy with it. And like I said, I learned something new about this one. I watching with subtitles for the first time did something different. So I was given a suggestion that I should maybe tweak my rating, because the 5 stars thing doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So what I will do is I will lead it up to 10 stars and now branch out to a 10-star rating. And because 5, 4 is very kind of, it's too tightly compact. So if I branch it out to a 10-star rating, then I can make a little bit more room for improvement. So it gets an 8 because it's almost a perfect film, and it has a historical inaccuracies, which lowers it down because they're trying to be as historically accurate as possible. However, it's a fantastic film in its own way, and I will rewatch it again and again. My only real complaint was, I guess I would have liked to have seen the real transformation for Gary Sinise's character, for Lieutenant Dan, because he goes from a hard-edged lieutenant to a, spoiler, hard-edged Vietnam veteran cripple who's a hard-drinking guy. And then we don't see really what happens between him being a tugboat first mate with Forrest. Yeah, that happens. And then when Jenny and Forrest get married, he comes by and he's got new legs. He's got new legs. He's got titanium alloy legs. So he's walking and he's with a Asian woman. And he was very bigoted and like, goddamn chinks and gooks. I apologize, but that's what he says. To just see him sort of branch out and realize he was wrong and prejudiced and racist and a drunk, just see him go through that transformation of his fiancée or whatever helping him through it. I would have liked to have seen that, because he's just as important of the movie Forrest Gump. I mean, it's Forrest, Jenny, and Lieutenant Dan. And Mama, really. I would have liked to have seen his arc overall. But overall, it gets an 8-star from me. I will rewatch this film. Not too many films will get a 10-star from me, because I could find criticism in anything. But anyways, what'd you guys think? Did you guys love Forrest Gump? Did you hate Forrest Gump? Are you one of those motherfuckers who hates Forrest Gump? Let me know. Dino, say goodnight, buddy. Bye, guys.